What's up? It's me again, Rudy Herrera, with some more comic book drawing lessons. So what we know so far is we've been practicing our character shape, right? We kind of figured out what our guys are gonna look like, our story. We did our paneling. We kind of mapped out our whole comic from beginning to end. We did little thumbnails and whatnot. So now, all the technical stuff is mostly done. So now we get right into drawing, right? Actually filling our panels, telling the story. So I want to just show you how we got to this part real quick, right? So when we were mapping out our comic, when we were doing our paneling, I used this tool. Actually got some papers and I folded them out, right? We did this and we kept it real basic just to show the spacing of everything. I want to show you the page we're going to be working on. It's this. So you see here, I just kept it real simple. It's stick figures, just to show the idea of what I'm thinking of, right? And then that developed into this, right? When we thumbnailed all our stuff, we figured all our pictures, and I roughly showed you basically this, right? So this is the same idea. These are the same things. This just a little fleshed out with paneling right here. Right now, on this one, I just knew I had this idea on this page. This one right here, I worked some basic paneling, right? This one I wanted to be a real dynamic scene, so he's busting out the panel right here. He's floating out of some panels. And this panel, I need you to see this. So, in this case, I used the panels to frame the two biggest ideas going on in this picture. So now I got that. That's prepped me for what we're gonna do next. And here's my page, right? So I'm working on this format right now, mostly so you guys can see. The one that you guys are gonna have, or that's applied to you, is this, right? It's gonna be folded in half, so it's actually smaller than what I'm working on, right? You guys are gonna be working on something this size, right? Just half of this. But for the sake of the lesson, I'm gonna do it on here. That way it could be seen better. So just keep that in mind. It'll be a little easier too. So, okay, well, I'm not gonna talk so much. Right now, you're gonna see me kind of run through the steps, which is basically my character form that I'm gonna put in the panels, and then that's when I start sketching and doing my pencil work. And now again, if you're not at the point where you're totally comfortable with your characters, I just happen to be drawing mine like this, right? This is what my story is, but maybe you don't have an action-heavy story. Maybe your characters are simpler. Maybe you're working with something like this, which is fine, Boom, that's your guy or whatever. Mine would look like that. He's a cop, right? But mine's a little bit more fleshed out. Don't feel like yours has to be, as long as you get your story across and we get something to show for it. So just keep that in mind. But I'm gonna work through the process I've been showing you. So check it out. Here I go. Right, so you see I just kind of shaped in my characters. See how rough it looks? And you saw that was a good idea because right here I changed the position of his arm. I was able to do that real quick, right, with my little circles. Instead of having the bend right here, I decided I'm going to keep this one straight. Maybe this one's going to have the bend because that's going to be a little harder for me to draw with that perspective, right? So it's easier for me to just draw a straight out arm, so I changed it up. And you know, even though right here, this part right here, you see his arm is straight. On this side, his elbow is bent on this side. You know, as you can see, it doesn't have to be, the nature of this comic is a little bit silly, right? So it doesn't have to be, you know, you don't have to keep everything the same or just be super accurate with it. I mean, you see right here, the guns are going to be changing, right? So where did you get all these guns? You know, I don't know. It doesn't matter. You know, this cop's going crazy, shooting all over the place. You got him. So you see, I just kind of sketched them in roughly with my circles. That's why that's a good practice, because you're not committed to anything. Things are just rough right now, and those are kind of just going to be your placeholders for the details you lay on top, right? So you can see I got roughly sketched in where I want some words to come out. You know, this is the panel where he starts freaking out. Something happens right here. You know, we know, or I know at least, that this is where someone gets shot in the leg. So I put that as a little separate panel floating on top of all this because I want you to take notice of that, because that's kind of gonna be our transition to the next page that tells, you know, starts introducing this character who got his leg shot. So I pretty much got my picture laid out how I want it, this little page. So now is when I go and kind of fine tune it. And even on this stage too, you can be really messy, because everything up to right now can be forgiven, right? Like, you don't have to commit to anything. You're gonna come back later, you're gonna put some pen over it, over the lines that you like, and then at that point you could just take an eraser to it, and you don't have to be precise with it. You know, you don't have to kind of go in and kind of nitpick these lines. You can just roughly go across the whole thing, right? So that's what we're trying to get at, right? To get it to go faster. So right now I'm gonna put some details and kind of flesh out this picture a little bit more. That's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so here we go. So that was one passing, right? I just went through everything one time and added some details. Put his face, put some expressions in there. I just did enough to get it through one time, right? So that was just one layer of detail just to get the idea done. And you know, so now at a point where I look at it and like, oh, okay, you know, I didn't pick up my eraser much. I think I'd use it over here because the idea is basically to just get it down, right? Like that's the whole thing. Just think about it. If you're doing a comic and you want a lot of stuff going on, you're gonna be drawing a lot, right? So the trick is to be as efficient as you can, right? Without you know, making things too sloppy that it's understandable by whoever's reading it. So as you see right here, you know, I kind of give myself little clues, like this gun's a little bit more fleshed out than this one, and because I know, okay, you know, I got this idea. So now when I go through it with pen, I'll be able to say, okay, well, these kind of need a match if I want them to. And now I can go back again and see what kind of details I think are just a little too wonky, or you know, what doesn't really make sense. Or off the top of my head, you know, I looked at this and was like, oh, there's some guy getting shot. I need to show him like on the ground. Maybe this is an opportunity to sneak in a little cool detail. You know, this guy got shot right here. He's wearing some Cortez. Maybe there's a little, you know, bug right here. Maybe there's a Chihuahua running away in the background. Maybe that could be put over here. But this is where you can add those little Easter eggs. You know, in my case, because my story is kind of, you know, trying to be silly about what's going on, those things it'll make sense, right? It won't really break up what the mood of what's going on. Like right here, you know, I'm trying to show that there's so much gun blast going out. It's actually breaking the frames, right? It's going past, it's gonna bleed to the end of the page to kind of show, like, you know, it's taking up all this space. So one thing I see I want to correct is just right here, right? I want to show this out. And this right here is this little speech bubble. Also notice I kind of want to put more shells. You know, this is supposed to be a mess. This, when you look at this, there's going to be some stuff in the background, some onomatopoeias. But I want this to be kind of like very loud and messy, you know. I mean, it's a guy shooting up the place. You see right here, it's like an old shot off. I was even thinking about putting a musket in there, but we went this route, right? So that's where we're at with our one passing. And then now I'm just gonna kind of comb through it again, make sure I like the way everything's at, maybe put in my softer details in the back, and just kind of flesh this out a little more, maybe some words. But let me do that. One thing I need to fix is this guy's mouth is a little too weird for me. See how his top lip sits a little bit longer? It could probably go, but it bugs me. So I'm gonna clean this. I got this pretty much fleshed out the way I like it. I feel good about it, you know, but I'm gonna clean this up just so it's better seen on the camera, right? And let me explain to you what I'm trying to do here with this image. Normally I'd save this step for the end to kind of just clean up everything, but I want to go through this and explain some stuff to you guys. Alright.
Hey, that's pretty good.
So here we go. So I pretty much got my image. I got enough information there that I could start inking this if I wanted to. A lot of this stuff is placeholder. I could see that I could fix during image or during inking. You know, one thing would be right here. I want this to kind of flare out. Let's see, another thing is right here. Also the hands, I know I could fix that with inking. So that's not something I necessarily need to go over again with the pencil. So just to show what's happening here with the story, right? What I'm trying to show is this guy freaking out. Right here saying stop. And then all this madness, all this shooting happens before resisting, right? So this guy's shooting before he even finishes sentences. Look, this guy already got shot, right? So that's one way you could use your this is the best way to push a story, right? To show what's happening, because you don't want to have a little narrator bubble right here saying, you know, and then Officer McCullough freaked out. You know, that's the tool of this, is that you could show that better than you could write it. And so that's what's going on. Like, you're gonna see this and like, wow, this guy really lost it right in between those two words. So yeah, I'm using all this, I'm keeping it messy, right? I'm using these big breaks. I'm gonna leave these solid, right? Solid, because all this is messy. I mean, look at this stuff going on. There's onomatopoeias, boom, going on in the background. Snuck in the word violence. You know, there's a little place to do all your little Easter eggs or your hidden messages. Shells all over the place. So this is gonna be a good break of rhythm, right? And I mimicked this panel right here. I kind of framed it, right, with this freaking out and with this resisting right here. And, you know, he was already yelling it because there's bits of the words underneath this panel, right where this dude got shot. So that's some basic character interaction in order for you to move the story, and just real simple hit right here with this guy. But that's kind of the next step, right? So in this case, even though he's not talking to another person or per se, you know, there's different people doing different things. It's all him, but I'm wanting to show you how to have those people share the space to move the story along, right? So in this case, you know, instead of showing all this stuff, because essentially the story here is this guy gets shot, right? To no fault of his own, because this guy's freaking out. So I wanted to show you how to do that right there. So yeah, let me run through another quick example to kind of show you something as well. I'm gonna show you something else. Remember, we went from this to this. It turned out so the next panel is gonna be something like this. I want to show you the next two, right? Because we kind of used all this to transition into this. This will just be real quick. I want to show something less dynamic, right? But I'm not gonna work through it the whole way, but I'm gonna show you how this transitions into this, right? So the part that we're living with, or the part that's leading into the next page, is this part right here. This guy getting shot in the leg. So basically, it's gonna look something like this, right? Start the same way. That's the placement. We call that the placement sketch, right? Where we kind of show where things are gonna go on these panels. And so now, what I'm trying to convey with the story is that, you know, there's this guy with a gun shooting up the place, and everybody's pretty much at this dude's mercy, right? And he just so happens to be a cop. So in this panel, I'm showing that this is a guy who got shot, right? So I just kind of roughed it in. And this panel over here, I'm showing a big oversized hand with the gun to this guy who's already down, right? Bleeding. To kind of show like, hey, he's at his mercy, right? With a big background freeze, because he's still yelling it. He's still all hyped up on his gun freak out. You see? And this could be real simple. This doesn't have to be everything that this is, right? Because we just went from this page to this page, this big old, you know, large, you know, crash, and we could slow down the pacing a little bit because we're gonna have some talking and some exchange, right? So it doesn't need to be all that. Remember, he's wearing Cortez. Now he's bleeding. And this is where we get our character reveal for the other guy, right? Yeah, so there you go. That's the next over, right? And what's cool about this part is that, you know, if you do it in this way, there's room for ideas, right? So I was thinking about putting a bunch of little butterflies over here, flying off the blood, and then over here where he's yelling freeze, I was even thinking it'd be kind of funny to make this guy actually frozen, you know, little ice cubes and stuff to show this dude is super froze. He is not trying to get shot no more. But you know, that's why I suggest working like this, because it gives little spaces for ideas like that to happen, right? And you're gonna need that if you're drawing a whole 16 pages and trying to work stuff out. But that's the basic run through of, you know, once you start getting your paneling, once your story's figured out, once you know what character is gonna do what, who's doing what to who, you know, where you want your highlighted pages to be at. That's the way you should do it. Figure out your panels, rough in your circle forms like we showed, and yeah, go over it once or twice. Again, don't worry about trying to get it exact from this part, because even right now there's still another step after this that we'll get into later as far as inking and whatnot, where we could kind of bring stuff forward and backwards, and you know, we could also use that to set some tones, a mood. But for right now, let's try to get to this point with our comic and get our pages fleshed out. Alright, so I got